Okay, we're live. Cool. And she edits everything afterward. Uh, sure, we're going. So, hey, everybody, we have AMA today with Shira Abel. She's the CEO of Hunter and Bard, a awesome marketing agency out in San Francisco. She's sorry, a current contributor to the Next Web, as well as a mentor at 500 startups. Shira, welcome to the hashtag startup chat here.
Thank you.
So, we'll wait for a couple questions to come in as everything gets started. But, first, I'd love to hear a little about your background, how you got started with Hunter and Able itself, and, in marketing in general. How did that all come to be?
So I've been in marketing now for around 20 years. Moved to Israel 18 years ago and got into startups almost immediately upon landing in Israel. So I've been working in startups ever since, working in marketing in startups. And I mean, back in the day, even before I moved to Israel, I was an IRC, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
When you had to go in through, a client on your Mac in the computer lab in the middle of the night, chatting with people all around the world. So I've always been a geek. And my very first job in a startup, there was an HTML test. So I taught myself HTML because I was bored at the job I had previously. And so I had taught this was in 97, 98, something like this. So I had taught myself HTML, and I went in for this job, and I went in to take the test. And the test was an HTML test, but they also had a bunch of Star Wars questions. And I was the first person who got all the Star Wars questions right. I also got all the HTML questions right. So I got the job. And that was how I got my first job in tech many, many years ago.
And then moving on from the first job, you've been in marketing for 20 years. Obviously, you've have a ton of experience in a ton of different fields. But I think the big focus that you maybe have is as we talked yesterday, behavioral marketing. If you wouldn't mind sort of explaining a little bit about that, I think that's something maybe a little bit foreign to most people. It's not something that comes up in normal conversation, or even at most startups. Even what should we do in regards to this this unknown sort of foreign thing that's just it just appeared.
So behavioral marketing is marketing. I mean, all of marketing is trying to influence your behavior in some way, either to get you to do something, make you aware of something, or encourage you to buy something. It's the point of bring in a lead. Okay, there's always a point to marketing. It's about awareness. It's about behavior. It's about getting us to do something. But on the other hand, in my opinion, marketing has to be integrated with the product. So and built into the product, and the product has to be really good, and then the marketing also has to go along with it. So an example of that, and an example that I gave you yesterday when we talked, is think about LinkedIn. Everyone looks at who looked at my profile. So my friend Ismail and I were having this discussion on he's like, why isn't that on the homepage? That should be on the homepage. They should make it really simple. And my argument is no, they shouldn't make it simple. So what type of behavior do you want? Well, LinkedIn wants people to click deeper into their site. And one way to get somebody to do that is to get them to click deeper one time. Once you click deeper, you are now primed. You are now somebody who clicks deeper into LinkedIn and to go to different pages. Okay? You've now exhibited this behavior. Well, your desire, your motivation for who viewed my profile is high, okay? So they can actually put in a bit of a pain and make who viewed my profile in on a different page. It doesn't have to be on the home page. And so because of that, you are now primed. You want to see this information. Your motivation is high. Another way to think about it, if you're aware of B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits model, so behavior equals motivation, ability, and trigger. Okay? Now, my behavior that LinkedIn wants is more clicks deeper into the site, more page views. So they find something where I have a high motivation. They know I have a high motivation because they've tested it. And the high motivation item is who viewed my profile. The ability, where is that link on the page to be able to go deeper in? It used to be kind of hidden on the side, okay, underneath something. Now it's front and center, right underneath all the headings. So now my ability is even easier than it was before because it's literally right in my face as I look at the page. And then the trigger is, of course, I see it, I want this information, I go in deeper. They also send you emails for this. That's another reason why email marketing works. Okay, email marketing brings you back in. If you think about Nir Eyal's hooked model, okay, Pinterest. I love Pinterest. How did it go from an external reward to an internal reward? External, so external, I get an email. I get an email telling me somebody liked something, somebody viewed something, somebody pinned something, or I'm going to like these pins. I get that email, it reminds me that Pinterest exists. Okay, I'll go check out Pinterest. That's my time. So then I spend time inside of Pinterest. The variable reward is there's things that I like and things that I don't. Every time I see something that I like, I get a dopamine rush. Every time I see something I don't, I don't. If it's something, if I love everything on there, you don't get the dopamine rush because it's expected. It has to be a variable reward. That's a very important bit of that. And by the way, the exact same thing with who viewed my profile. You know, I'm not going to be thrilled with everybody who looked at my profile. The reason why I keep going back is because of the variable reward. So the two end up combining a lot. So this is behavioral marketing. It's thinking about how are we going to implement these little things in order to get hooks in there, to get people to come back. And it's not just in the product itself. It could be in the way you end up marketing something. Scarcity or fear of missing out. You put a timeline on something. So there's a whole bunch of different ways for you to be able to put in behavior and to spur behavior in the direction that you want it to go.
Very, very interesting. Now, in regards to sort of like, you know, obviously with Hunter Bard, I'm sure you do a lot of these things for your clients. Do you have any sort of interesting examples from sort of maybe an early stage startup level or something sort of quick little processes maybe people can do, or you know, sort of things they can think about in a general sense where they could apply to their own company?
Okay, so I was mentoring in Macedonia a couple weeks ago, and one of the people there was asking me, how do I get? There's too many negative reviews. She has a restaurant site, and there's too many negative reviews on the site. And so, you know, how do you get it where it's lower? Well, there's a couple things that you could do. One, you make sure that every person who reviews on the site puts in a real profile, a real name. So it's got to connect to something like Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, you can also you can lead them through. So you could put in something along the lines of, how was your experience at this restaurant? If it was awesome, leave a review. If it was just kind of meh, you could, you know, talk to somebody at the restaurant. Or if it was horrible, you know what? How about we send you straight to management?
Okay.
And you could put in this type of process before you even take them over to the review itself.
And then you actually keep them, I guess, sort of accountable in the sense, because it's their Facebook profile, they're now public, right? There's no, they're not trolling. People know who they are. There's
a lot harder to troll when it's actually your name and your photo. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a general thing. I think there's probably TechCrunch comments as well. They turn that out for a reason. But very, very cool. For Hunter and Bard also, as we discussed, it's like, you know, there's a lot of different things you can do with content as well. I know a lot of startups sort of struggle with sort of getting their content sort of fine-tuned to a certain point. Are there any tips and tricks you can give in terms of content and how a company can use maybe certain words or, you know, different headlines, or potentially how they lay out the page, or different examples like that?
So there's tons of things that you can do. We're a HubSpot company, but you don't have to use HubSpot. There's others as well. So first of all, the content itself. It's not just about putting the content on your blog. You have to spread it. So, you know, you cross-post on Medium. You cross-post under your CEO's profile on LinkedIn. You can guest post and see if you can get the post that you wrote to be a guest post on, say, The Next Web or TechCrunch or another service like that, and also where you post it. So if it's something that Hacker News is going to find interesting, post it on Hacker News. You could also put it on Growth Hackers. There's all these different other places where you could be cross-posting as well. Okay, so there's that. And also the content itself. The content has to be really, really good. It has to be something that's interesting to your audience. If you're writing only about your company, most likely the only people who are going to find it interesting are people in your company and your mom. That's not helpful. It's not enough. So you have to provide helpful information to your industry. This type of thing is critical for software as a service companies, companies that are doing business to developer, business to business. Another way to do this, if you're a business to consumer, well, look at Food 52. They've done an amazing job at mixing media with e-commerce. And so there's a fantastic example. Another great example, Martha Stewart. So these are two actually quite similar media models where you could tie in e-commerce and a B2C company with content. From the side of B2B, you've got Kissmetrics. And for B2D, well, you should look at the content. If you're doing a mobile app, you should look at the content on SafeDK, SAFEDK.com. So their stuff is all aimed towards mobile developers, and some of the content is actually quite technical. So you have to write for your audience. If you're writing to a technical audience, you should be writing for a technical audience. That's kind of the point of it. Another thing is if you have the opportunity to promote others. Yeah. So if you are a B2B and you have clients that are doing really well thanks to your service, say Buffer, or or a whole bunch of other companies, you can write about how they're using your service. You could write about their company and you could write about their service, and by promoting them, they will in turn promote you. You can also create a list of 80 people you need to know in the industry for this, whatever reason. And then you take that list and it's a listicle, and you send it out to the 80 people and let them know that you promoted them in this post, and then they sit and share the post. So that's another way to make sure that your content gets spread. It's all about building your newsletter. Newsletter has the highest ROI of all digital marketing. So it's really important to build up your numbers in the newsletter. For now, of all different types of marketing, mobile and digital, it would be the notification, I think, is number one, because it's right there. It's on your phone. You look at it. It's immediate. But again, it's shorter. Yeah. And you have to be incredibly succinct, whereas an email you've got much longer. So.
Space. In regards to sort of maybe applying behavioral marketing to content, is there anything that you've done with Hunter and Bard and some of your clients that that would reflect that in terms of maybe optimizing a post in some sort of psychological way or something to that effect?
There's so many different things. You could write, you can trust us, and subconsciously, a large percentage, like 20 to 30%, will trust you more simply because you wrote the words, "You can trust us," with whatever. There's, when you're doing, if you are going to do a listicle, doing a large odd number works better than an even number or a smaller number. No idea why. I think it's because odd numbers happen more often in nature. So it's a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
There's words that you could use. Seamless is one of those words. Everybody wants things to be effortless, seamless, this type of things that show ease of use. So there's a bunch of different things that you could be doing. A great book to read about this is Words That Work.
Okay, very cool.
And that's actually a book about politics, but you could take those words and stick them into marketing for your product, and it works just as well.
Yeah, no, I've seen and read quite a few posts where it's like, if you change buy now to get, like you get like a 30% more.
Don't make them think. Tell them what to do. So give them an actual action. Get this. Do this. Yes, you are more likely to get conversions from that.
100%. In regards to sort of the newsletter and mailing list, any tips to actually grow the list? I know there's all these plugins and different things coming out where you have like WordPress, like 10 seconds you're on the page, it pops up, and please enter your email address.
AppSumo's got some nice tools for that.
Yeah, Sumo site. So.
SumoMe?
Yeah, I think that's their little new packaging around it. So. But what do those work? I mean, is that something that you've seen?
They
really?
Absolutely work. Giving something away in order to get their email also works. Again, it's about spreading all of that around. But at the end of the day, it's about the content. So yes, it does work. It absolutely works. What's his name? There's one writer whose blog I really, really, really like. Hold on a second. I can look it up.
Yeah, because it's really interesting in a normal front. Like, you have all these. Because for me, like, it annoys the shit out of me. Like, I'm just like, this is incredible already. But it's, that's why I always am wondering, like, is this actually? Because maybe I'm so used to it from, like, being in marketing and then the cynical side of the thing. Like, oh yeah, I just put 20 of these on like 10 different pages. Like, click, 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 click. So
So Andrew Chen does it really, really nicely. He also writes incredible content. He's a blog that if you're in the startup world and you want to read interesting stuff, Andrew Chen has probably one of my favorite blogs out there.
yeah,
And while Sean Ellis was the one who coined the term growth hackers, Andrew Chen was actually the one that grew the term growth hackers. It was his blog that mentioned Sean Ellis's original post, and it blew up from there. So so his blog is a really nice way of asking for it, but he gives amazing content. So at the end of the day, just like it's about the product, it's about the product. The product in this case is your content. Your content has to be really good, or else nobody's going to want to read it anyhow. And it really doesn't. You'll get people to sign up, but as soon as they start getting your emails, they're going to suck and they're going to unsubscribe. So your content has to be really good. And then, yes, of course, it's going to grow, and it'll grow exponentially because people will be sharing it in a million places.
makes sense. In regards to sort of back to the psychological sort of behavioral marketing sense, I've seen, I actually did a lot of stuff with Betalist, and like what we used to see is like if the landing page looked good, then there was like, much higher conversion of people entering their email address or actually visiting the site. How much of a factor do you think design in general has on sort of psychology? Because I'll give you one more example in the sense, like if I get a ton of sales emails, right, from
Mhm.
like God knows your mother's product, and basically, I click it, that looks like garbage, and that it just goes in the trash. So like, is that, I don't know if that's just me, or is that a, sort of something that people should keep in mind?
So yes, absolutely. There's a huge amount of power in branding. The first brand effect. Your brain, if you go into a store, let's say you go to the grocery store, you see the one product that you like. Your brain doesn't process anything when it sees the brand it likes. It just goes, grabs it, and you're done. If you're going after an item and and your brand is sold out, like your favorite brand is sold out, suddenly your brain has to do a lot of processing in order to figure out what brand you're going to buy instead.
Okay.
So there is a huge, huge advantage to good branding. Here's the problem. Okay, so there's an issue with bad branding and inconsistent branding. Every time somebody sees your logo and your colors and whatever, okay, T-Mobile, great example, that magenta, you can't miss it. You see that magenta, you think T-Mobile. It's completely consistent. I know of a startup, and I'm not going to name names, but I know of a startup that keeps changing its colors and keeps changing its brand.
Yep.
And I'm like, do you realize every time you change it, you kill your brand equity? So in somebody's brain, they have these colors and this form and this logo associated with the brand. When you change that, you're taking out the subconscious power you've just had in this person's brain for your brand and to think of you, and you're making them associate something else with it, and you've just destroyed the brand equity that you already had built up. Whereas if you're consistent, they keep saying it, they keep saying it, they keep saying it, that raises your trust level, and it raises the odds of them actually buying you. Yes, branding is hugely important. It's more than just a logo. It's the colors, it's the textures, it's the words that you use, it's the tone that you use. It's keeping everything consistent and clean. And it is extremely important in the sales cycle, and to a level that, but it's the problem with branding is that it's basically impossible to measure. It's really difficult to measure because it's not something that, oh, we redid our branding, now we're going to see, is the click-through rate going to change? Well, yes, but you don't know if you did it better or worse, if it would have been changed how. So I suppose you could A/B test it, but that'd be extremely, that would, you could do, there are things that you could be doing, but you never really know for sure. So there could be a whole bunch of other factors involved. And that's the reason why people get nervous with it. But in my opinion, they shouldn't be.
Okay. Now, when you have, so let's say you're just getting started, maybe some of the companies that you've mentored in the past, what advice do you give them when they're sort of starting to build their brands, starting to come out with the designs and sort of, colors and all that other fun stuff?
Um, Thin fonts don't work well online,
Okay.
especially if you're going to take it and put it into a logo or an icon,
Okay.
like an icon, because you have to think about how things are visually on a page, right? You also need an icon. What's going to be inside of your avatar?
Yeah.
Um, the original Hunter and Bard logo has a line, like a shadow type line
Hmm.
in the avatar. So I did two versions of it. I did one with a line and one without a line. And in our print stuff, we use the line. In our non-print stuff, we don't use the line. And because it's the same logo, uh, it's. I don't think it ends up hurting the brand equity because it's the exact same
Yeah.
logo, just one's for print and one's for web. But things like this end up making a huge difference. Um, I was sitting on a plane. I was sitting on a plane next to somebody flying from LA to San Francisco, and he was working on a logo, and he was doing a black shadowed logo on a black background. That's the other thing. You have to think about, yes, you're young, your eyes work really well, but is your entire audience young? So if you're selling to enterprise, a lot of your audience will probably already be wearing glasses, and they will curse you if you do white on black. The readability is down, and so you have to think about that. You have to think about who are you aiming for, and are they going to be able to see it as comfortably? Is your font too small? If you're doing light gray on white, who's going to be able to read it? I have the eyes of a fighter pilot, but most people do not. So it's going to end up making a difference, and you have to make it where people can actually see it and read it easily. That's the other thing. You want to be able to recognize the logo from far away. So look at your screen and then stand like 10 feet back,
Yeah.
and how well can you see it? So these are tests that
Facebook,
you should be doing.
yeah. Slack, even like all those ones, I would say quite easily you could like pick out from a distance. Even like I saw some billboards that what was it called, Snapchat put up in San Francisco, and I was like, yeah, it's just a huge yellow billboard with the logo on it. That's it.
Yep,
So
yep. But
um,
everybody knows what it is. It's iconic. So you
yeah,
want to do something iconic.
yeah, very very cool. In regards to maybe elaborating more on that in a sense, like if you are just getting started though, like obviously having thin lines, readability, and things like that. But is there any sort of resources or anywhere people can go or different things they should be thinking about aside from sort of making it easy to read and easy to consume? Like obviously not everyone knows good design, right? That's something
Spend
that.
time on Dribble.
Huh?
Spend time on Dribble.
Okay.
Spend time on Dribble and spend time on Inc. Does a lot of articles on branding. And another great resource for branding is coming up on my computer, and it's loading really slowly. Designer News.
Okay. I'd also actually throw one more out there is Landbook, land-book.com. Like they post every single landing page possibly. That's like super
Yeah,
amazing.
but that's not straight about branding. I mean, if we're talking about branding alone, so the other places. If we're talking about landing pages, Landbook is awesome. If you're talking about UX, UX Archive. And then there's UX Archive. I have them actually listed on my SlideShare. I do really long decks when I give talks. So check out one of my decks,
Sure.
one of my Marketing for Startups decks, and it'll be in there.
Okay, very very cool. No, it's always like it's very interesting. Like I've seen logos from like beginning to end, and it's super interesting. And then when you get the landing pages, like some companies might have a beautiful logo. They'll send you a nice white paper. It'll be out beautiful branding everything. Like then you get to the page, and it's just like what happened? Like where did you go wrong? Like it's just always super interesting.
What went wrong? Yeah.
In terms of like, obviously with Hunter and Bard, you guys do a lot of writing and content creation.
Right.
What sort of advice would you have for sort of creating that voice and tone for your company?
So
Not only the brand, but actually making like for Envision, I would say like we have a really cool way that we would sort of promote ourselves in a sense, something to that effect. But like, what would you say?
MailChimp has a very, very clear identity and a very, very clear brand identity and tone of voice. Okay? So from this sense, I would say, who's your audience? what is the tone of voice that you want? What benefits are you bringing to the customer? What are your key selling points? So I would map all of these out, and I would actually put them into a book that would end up being almost like a brand Bible, a verbal brand Bible for the company so that everybody's on the same page. Actually, MailChimp even has a tone of voice online
Website, yeah.
for all of their external writers, so they could see this is how we write this is how we write that, and you can see that they even define how to do humor. Okay, because humor isn't the same in every place. Some people would consider one thing offensive, and others would say, "What? That's not offensive at all." So you have to keep those things in mind: things you can't do, things you can do, things you can't do. So I would actually go and define all of it. That also goes with your mission, vision, and values. So that needs to be something. I would marry that with the internal of the company as well, so that everybody is on the same page with it, and it becomes something that represents the company as a whole as well, as part of the culture.
Okay, very cool. And in regards to, I guess, like, sort of closing up here, yesterday you gave a beautiful piece of advice about whenever you're maybe taking an international flight in an airport, and I think I might let you, sort of take the rest of that.
All right, so I travel a lot, and I have a tendency to buy things while I'm away, and then come back, and I know that my luggage might be a pound over. And so whenever I'm a little nervous about the weight of my luggage, I'll bring gum or Altoids or something, or mints or whatever, and I'll offer it to the person at the counter. Now they're going to say no because they have to say no. By law, they have to say no. I'm fairly positive because nobody's ever said yes. So they always say no, but they're also significantly more likely at that point to go, "Oh, you're just a kilo, it's just a pound over, it's fine, just let it go through." And then they just kind of let it go through because I've built up reciprocity. I've built up reciprocity by offering them something without them asking for it, and then they said no to it, so then there's an additional piece there where they're like, "Okay, well, no, but you offered, so I feel like I owe you something regardless." So then they're more likely to let you go through. Okay. That would be how you can use behavioral engineering in real life.
Yeah, no, very, very cool. I also, I would assume, like, 1 or 2 pounds is all fine and dandy, but I guess if you're 5, 10 pounds over, you might as well, bring a car with you and see if they want to take that. Yeah, very, very cool. And then we'll post all the rest of the links we talked about today in the chat for everyone to take a look at. But thank you so much, Shira. It was fantastic talking to you. I mean, just amazing sort of insights into this behavioral world. I think a lot of people just don't really realize even exists. Like, it's such a subconscious thing. It's really interesting. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. Bye.
LF. There we go. So, oh no, she's there. So, oh, she just hung up. Okay, that works too. I should probably, yeah. Bye.